Hey guys, so I'm going to cover a couple things now that we didn't have time to cover in class. Particularly, we're going to be dealing with the turtle and how that turtle crosses the road. Now, we know that this is actually a metaphor for the farmers during the Great Depression. And I want to look at three quotes in particular that discuss and discuss how this works. And please realize I'm doing this in one take due to limited time. So there might be once or twice where I pause or I stumble on what I'm saying. It's just like a lecture in class. I will try to keep it relatively short though. All right. So first things first. As we go through, we want to keep in mind that this is supposed to be the representation of the farmer during the Great Depression. In fact, I have this quote up in the top of the screen. He came over the grass, leaving a beaten trail behind him. Just like the farmers would come to a field and leave a trail behind them as they ripped up the native life and they went through and they basically planted their seeds, we see the turtle doing the same thing. In fact, the turtle progresses through the entire chapter, and as he goes, he not only clears the area, but he drops seeds, he drags dirt over them, and he basically sets up the next level of life to continue going. So the turtle keeps on acting almost as a farmer. Although, I mean, he's not doing it consciously, he's still doing it. You also can look at the turtle's dominance over the landscape. Everything he comes across, he basically climbs over or he overcomes. And you want to I want to point out the red ant at this point. The ant comes up to him, and even though that particular piece of wildlife did not have any sort of negative feeling towards him, it still, it was still crushed by the farmer, like much indigenous life would have been crushed by farming back in this time period. Now, we also want to look at one other aspect of the farmer, and if you look, there's this one section where he's trying to climb up the parapet, and that road is supposed to be a representation of the modern world. This asphalt lane that's been put into the world so things, particularly products, can move quickly back and forth. And we'll get to the truck and the car in a moment. But if you look at it, talking about his legs, they talk about how they worked independently, the hind legs pushing the shell against the wall. And this really lays out how the farmers are working independently of one another instead of coming together and working together to overcome the problems of the Great Depression. Now, ultimately, for the Great Depression to end, people are going to have to come together and work together, or else, it's going to take a lot longer, and that's what we're seeing here. Eventually, they will work together, and the Depression will be overcome through unity and, honestly, through the Second World War. But for now, you see them sort of struggling independently, and that independent struggle is not helping anyone. So let's get rid of that quote, and let's talk about the interaction on the road. Now, the turtle gets onto the road, and now it faces two problems. One is the car, and the other is the truck. Now, we know the truck clearly tries to kill the turtle, and it misses, and it's very lucky. Now, this is a representation of big business, or if you prefer, the landowners who are trying to modernize the world. And by modernizing the world and modernizing farming, they're going to destroy some of the old school agrarian lifestyle. That's just what's going to happen with modernization. But what's more interesting is the woman in the car. And if you take a look at this quote, it says two wheels lifted for a moment and then settled back. The car skidded back on the road and went on, but much more slowly. That car, if you look at it, is what we're going to call a jalopy, essentially a beat-up old car that somebody is driving because that's all they can afford. And this car actually risks, the woman who's driving it risks her life by moving around that turtle and takes those two wheels up off the ground, endangering herself, endangering the car, and wrecking the entire thing for the sake of that turtle. And this is that representation of the poor watching out for the poor. And Steinbeck is setting this all up with this turtle as a way to slip it in under somebody's radar and let them see the way the world is working. Essentially, the natural world has been conquered by the farmers, and now the modern world is trying to conquer the farmer. The only way the farmers are going to survive is if they come together and they work together. And if they don't, what's going to happen is the larger landholders and businesses and everything like that is going to go out of its way to crush them. Now, that turtle has a lot of meaning in the book, and you want to make sure that you're aware of that as you go through the chapter again this evening. And with that, I kept it at 5 minutes and 15 seconds. Have a good night. And remember, there is a quiz on Thursday. Enjoy the day off, and I'll see you guys on Thursday.